On that. Mr. Duncan, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have any questions, but I do have some comments. I want to read something from a Washington Post story of October 8th. And it said in this story, it said the Obama administration's strategy for bolstering Pakistan's civilian government was shaken Wednesday when political opposition and military leaders there sharply criticized a new U.S. assistance plan as interfering with the country's sovereignty. Although President Obama has praised the $7.5 billion five-year aid program approved by Congress last week, Pakistani officials have objected to provisions that require U.S. monitoring of this package. That was in October. Then on November 1st, when Secretary Clinton was visiting there, the Los Angeles Times had this in one of their stories. At a televised town hall meeting in Islamabad, the capital, on Friday, a woman in a mostly female audience characterized U.S. drone missile strikes on suspected terrorist targets in northwestern Pakistan as de facto acts of terrorism. A day earlier in Lahore, a college student asked Clinton why every student who visits the U.S. is viewed as a terrorist. The opinions Clinton heard weren't the strident voices of radical clerics or politicians with anti-U.S. agendas. Some of the most biting criticisms came from well-mannered university students and respected seasoned journalists, a reflection of the breadth of dissatisfaction Pakistanis have with U.S. policy toward their country. Then December 3rd in the Washington Post, President Obama's new strategy for combating Islamist insurgents in Afghanistan fell on skeptical ears Wednesday in next-door Pakistan, a much larger nuclear-armed state that Obama said was at the core of the plan and had even more at stake than Afghanistan. Is this, the transatlantic legislative dialogue. The chairman of the European delegation actually at one point criticized the U.S., and all these people were very nice people, but he criticized the U.S. for not spending enough on foreign aid. And for many years, I've heard people say that, well, foreign aid is only a little over 1% of our entire budget. Yet they don't stop to think that about half of what the Department of Defense does now is just pure foreign aid. We've almost turned the Department of Defense into the Department of Foreign Aid, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're spending money to do things in other countries through every department and agency of the federal government, and that's foreign aid that we don't get credit for. We're actually spending hundreds of billions in other countries, or have spent hundreds of billions in really pure foreign aid over the last several years. And I asked a few days ago for the latest figure from the Congressional Research Service on how much aid we had given to Pakistan over the last few years, since 2003. And this wouldn't even count all the money that's been given through all these other departments and agencies, but people also don't realize that in addition to the traditional foreign aid program, we come up with these other bills, like the $7.5 billion one that we just passed, and before that, since 2003, we'd given $15.5 billion in aid to Pakistan. Now we've passed another $7.5 billion. This is money that we can't afford. We're over $12 trillion in debt. We've got almost $60 trillion in unfunded future pension liabilities. And then we come along and we spend all this money to give all this money to Pakistan, and then what do? They criticize us. It seems to me that it takes an extreme amount of gall for a country to accept $15.5 billion in aid from us, and now $7.5 billion coming on top of that, in addition to all the other things, and then come out with just one anti-American statement after another. It really bothers me, and I would say to the leadership in Pakistan, if they don't like what we're doing, please turn down this money. The problem is all these countries, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of them, they all want our money. And that's all this is about. It's about money and power, and it's not doing us any good at all. It just seems to be increasing anti-American feelings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.